Charmaine. It's great to be spending just a little moment with you, and I'm just going to share a little bit of my life, why I'm living in Nashville, Tennessee, and why I took a tour around the country. I have quite a unique beginning. Most kids are born in their hometown and, go to school and then go to college and then decide what they're going to do with their life. But I was actually born on a tour. My parents come from Sydney, Australia, and about 27 years ago they decided to do full-time ministry, and they were strong-headed about it, and they stepped out in faith. And in the midst of that, in the midst of this 10-month long tour that they were going to do through Australia, New Zealand, America and South America, they found out that they were going to have me. So they had a choice. They could have me in New Zealand or in LA, but it worked out better to be in LA. So it didn't stop them. They stepped out and they went purely, out of craziness or just faith, trusting that God would provide, and He certainly did. So I ended up being born in the midst of their tour in LA, so yes, I'm an American citizen. So my family in Australia didn't see me until the end of that tour. I was about 4 or 5 months old when I came back to Australia. So I've grown up in Australia, grown up in my parents' ministry. I did my schoolwork at the bus, touring all over Australia, going to any place that would open up to us, and just sharing through music hope, sharing through music what we believed, our convictions in this God, that was beyond our problems, that was beyond our circumstances, that could rescue us where we were at. And that conviction was so strong that I decided to join that ministry when I was about 11 and a half. Before I would just go up and do like one song per concert. If I wanted to. My parents were never pushy about me singing on stage. But when I was 11 and a half, I gave my life to Jesus, and I said, this is what I want to do with my life. I just knew it at that young age. So I went over to my dad and I was like, I want to join this ministry, sing with the singers full time. And he was like, well, do it. I was almost as tall as some of the girls, so I joined, and I ended up doing an album on my own when I was about 14, and I wrote most of the songs on that album. And it was just a great tool for young kids to see another young kid and say, hey, I want to buy her CD, and hopefully get encouragement from it. And so that CD came across to America through a trip that my dad and my uncle did. And they met up with a man called David Smallburn, and he was actually he is the father of Rebecca St. James, and a fellow Australian, and that's the reason why they wanted to talk to him. And they had a great meeting. He heard the CD and called my dad the next day and said, I would like your daughter to be signed to my record label. So a year after that, I was about 16 and a half. And I remember getting the call, and it was such a foreign concept, to be signed to a label, to do this on a much professional, technical business, all of that was just really, really new to me. But I gave it to God, and I was like, if this is the door that you're opening, then this is the door I'm going to walk through. And it was a huge sacrifice for me personally, because I was 16 and I never had to make a friend, because most of my family members and my friends I grew up with since I was little. So coming to a new world, a new culture, a new life was a huge step for me. But I was totally embraced. But I was totally embraced by Rebecca St. James's family, and I hit the road with them that very year that I moved to America, and I started opening for Rebecca. And it was probably about the second or third night. She was like, hey, do you know this song? And I was like, yeah, I know that song of yours. So she goes, oh, do the harmony. So I did the harmony, and she was like, okay, you're my backup singer now. So it kind of happened that quickly. It was a bit of a shocker, but it was great. It was such a good... You can't go to school for that sort of stuff, It was like being in my very own university on the road with Rebecca. So I stayed with her for 7 years, and it was one of the highlights. Best 7 years, being able to see the world and to see ministry and how she did it and what you get on stage is what you can't go to school for the the kind of touring and ministry and music and all the learning about performance and talking on stage and, you know, all of that stuff, I don't think there's a school that really provides. You actually have to go out and do it. So that's why it was awesome to be on the road with Rebecca and her family, to see ministry and to do it like that. But I came to a place where I was like, I got to fulfill what God first brought me out here to do. And there were a couple of things that happened that really shook my world. I almost lost my mum, and it was a really kind of a crossroads in our lives, you know, because she had to stay back in Australia. The doctors didn't know what was wrong with her. And I had come from a Christian home. I think I'm like the 4th, 5th generation Christian. I never had a reason to question God. Things were sweet for me. Things were good. And I'm very, you know, love to read. I love to discuss and philosophize about life and God with my dad, you know, back and forth. We ask the really hard questions, but it's all in theory. You know, it's not in practice. But the moment, the reality that I could possibly lose somebody so close in my life came to, I didn't know what to do. I started to question God. I questioned my own existence, purpose on this earth. And I was like, what are we doing? If he's there, why is he letting her suffer? And she was in hospital. They couldn't find out. They actually had to rush her to hospital. And it was only until the very end, where we almost lost her, that they actually found out what it was. And they were able to save her. And in those moments in my life, I actually realized that he was actually trustworthy. You know, those times where I questioned God and where I said, am I even supposed to be in America? You know, is this us or is this you? He opened doors in ways that I could be explaining it to you for hours. That could only be God, you know. And it pushed us to a place, funnily enough, it pushed us through the pain, through the struggle, through the uncertainty, to get closer to God, to trust him more. Put me in a place where I could actually let go of things, and it could wholeheartedly, this ministry, this music, you know, where my life is going, could wholeheartedly be his and not mine, you know. And so it was the hardest of times, but it was the best time. And so since then, a lot of this new album called Love Reality stems from those, you know, dark periods, those hard times, those moments of questioning. You know, I've come to find that not only is he good, not only is he what he says he is, but he makes sense out of all the questions you could possibly ask. You know, he makes the most sense. And so, man, a lot of Love Reality has got those questions and those answers and those in-betweens. And a lot of the song Tokyo is based on my life, where it's everywhere. It's almost every country. I've named all of the countries that I've been to except Tokyo. Tokyo I have not been to. So that's probably why I named it Tokyo. But it's basically saying that whatever happens in life, wherever you're going, whatever stage, in spite of your situation, even in spite of who you are, if his kingdom, if you allow his kingdom to be here in your life, in your heart, then whatever happens, it's going to be okay, because he is walking beside you, and you'll find that he makes